Welcome to the Home of Misfits podcast, where normal is optional, masks are unnecessary, and you belong. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Home of Misfits, where normal is optional, masks are not necessary, and you belong. And I'm excited today because, yeah, Gen X, I have a fellow Gen Xer here with me today. Stuart Jaffe, rhymes with Taffy, I had to ask, you know. And hey, Stuart, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
I'm so excited you're here. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm a Gen Xer. Apparently, that's worth mentioning.
I think it's worth mentioning because, Gen
Uh,
X.
I'm a writer. I write fantasy and science fiction. I've been doing it for over 30 years now. Um, and I've written a ridiculous number of books. I'm what you would call a hybrid author, mostly indie, but I have done some stuff with publishers before. And if anybody of your audience knows me, they probably know me from the Max Porter Paranormal Mysteries. That's my biggest selling series, and there's like 20 books in it right now and still going strong. So
Nice. So
me.
when did you start writing?
When did I start writing or start being an author? Because I started writing a long, long time ago. But
Yeah, okay. Well, the thing is, so it's like, yeah, when did you start writing and when did you decide to become an author and what made you decide to
yeah.
become an author?
So I mean, I have memories very early of trying to write things and trying, sitting down, I'm going to write a book and not knowing what I was doing.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and I wrote throughout high school and all that. Not just kind of on and off. I remember being in an English class and I won second place in a short story contest. So
Oh,
clear
nice.
that I was doing some stuff there, but I wasn't that serious about it till when I was in college. My undergrad was in theater, in directing theater. And I started writing plays so that I could direct them. and,
Nice. Makes sense,
and
yes.
so for that kind of started me actually being more serious and thinking about writing. And then it was the year after I graduated and I was still in the area. A friend of mine and I started a theater company. And I just was curious. I'd written tons of short stories by then. I'd done classes. I'd always loved writing, and I don't know I really don't know what possessed me, but I thought I knew from writing short stories that I could write a page in a day. That's not, a couple hours. I could write a page. I didn't know about word count or anything back then. I just thought in terms of actual pages. And I
Right.
thought, well, if I write a page a day for a year, at the end of the year, it'd be 365 pages, and that's a book. And hopefully it would make sense. And so that's what I did. And when I finished it, and this is advice to anybody who tries this, at the end of that year, one of two things will happen. Either you'll be like, wow, I did that. I never want to do it again. I'm done. Feather in my cap. And it is quite an accomplishment. But the majority, I forget what the percentage is, something ridiculous, like 80 or 90% of people who sit down and write a book never finish it.
Correct.
So if you finish your book, that's already a huge accomplishment. But the other thing that will that if you don't fall in that one category, the other category is where I fell, where I was like, wait, I did it, but now I can do it again and do it better. And I kept trying until I get better and better. And I wrote 6 or 7 novels before I could write one that was publishable. That was my learning curve, which for most professional authors, that was average to a little bit on the fast side. I know some authors, big name authors who took, 10 to 13, 14 books before they were able to get published and write
Right.
something publishable, I should say. So yeah, and that's kind of how I ended up falling into it. So I started a long time ago, and then I got an agent and went on that whole process of trying to get published because back then there was no, well, when I first started trying to get a novel published, the internet wasn't even, it existed, but
Yeah.
it was not something we all were like, yes, let's jump there. That's how we communicate and everything. It just existed.
Hmm.
Um, and then, uh, uh, so I kind of went on the merry-go-round of having an agent and getting my stuff sent and getting rejected and words of encouragement and all kinds of things. And eventually, I got to a point where I was pretty much going to quit. I was like, it's just not happening. Do I really want to write a whole nother novel just to have it go get seen by like three people and that's it?
Hmm.
Uh, but that was like for a year, the year I was trying to decide what to do. That same year was the year that Kindle had come out, and that the Kindle had changed. Ebooks existed before that, but they really weren't
Right.
functional. And the Kindle came out, and indie publishing was just getting going. And so I had spent years, having it drilled into me that being indie was a bad word, a bad thing. And it took me about a year to get over that. And so I finally was like, well, I'd spent like 10 years writing short stories before I ever tried a novel, being published in anthologies and magazines and all that. So I was like, well, I got all these short stories. I'll put them together into a collection. I'll put it out there and see what happens. Um, and the moment I sold a copy of that book that I could not identify who bought it. I knew it wasn't my mother or my brother, anybody, nobody I knew bought it. Some stranger had bought it. I felt that fire, that excitement that I felt when I first started that whole journey.
Nice.
And I was like, I'm all in. And then I kind of, for many years, I just went all in on indie and didn't even want to talk to anybody who was a publisher. And, eventually I got over that and came back.
Yeah. I get that. The first time somebody you see there's a book sold and it's not somebody you know, it's like, oh.
Yeah, yeah, it's really exciting. It's really exciting.
It's like something shifts there, you know?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, wow, maybe there's something that we're putting out, So, but you said you wanted to be the next Stephen King when you started out. So I have a little questionnaire for people to fill out. So, and you said you wanted to be the next Stephen King when you started out. What did you actually think fame would give you back then?
Well, as a Gen Xer, we grew up, we were teens and throughout the 80s and the 70s and 80s, when you became famous, yeah, there was paparazzi, there's downsides, I'm sure, but it looked like a pretty cool gig, right?
Right?
Being famous meant not just great opportunities, but everybody knew you, even if they don't, everybody knows who Stephen King is, even if they don't read him.
Right.
Uh, Being famous back then, before the internet, meant that you were part of the culture. Again, even if you never read a single, excuse me, Stephen King book, somebody could say to you, Cujo, as a dog, somebody walks by with a big dog and somebody says Cujo, and you knew what they were talking about. It was
Right.
part of our culture, and we grew up in a time when being rich and famous was fetishized, right? There was a show called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous so it was really drilled into us that was the ultimate measure of success. And so of
Mhm.
course that's what I wanted. Um, and over the years, though, things change. And part of it is that, some of us, it's very few people who get to that level. So there are plenty of, there's the number of talented writers who deserve to be that well read and well known is enormous. And some of them never even got published back in
Right.
the day, or today are just not known.
Hmm.
And one of the bits of advice I give when I do panels and conventions and writing conferences and all is I say to new writers, to get in this habit, but once like every 5 years, to sit down with yourself and have a truly honest, heart to heart with yourself about what you want. And that because if you don't know what you really want, especially in my business, and I suspect it's true of any of the arts, it,
Hmm.
you don't know how to go get it. Like whether to be an indie author or go with a major
Right.
publisher or all the different permutations in between, you have to know what it is what success means for you. And
Absolutely.
and it's important to do it every like 4 or 5 years because as I learned, it changes.
Well,
Um,
we have to take inventory. And it's like, was there a specific moment when you realized it's like you didn't want that kind of success, that Stephen King kind of success?
Um, I think it happened gradually. I certainly, when I went indie, I recognized that I'd already going indie at that time was kind of a thought of, well, I guess I'm not going to get the golden ticket, so I'm just going to try and build a career. But then my indie career, I'm like a big fish in a small pond kind of thing, right? So in a small ponds of small ponds, like people who know who I am, who are readers of mine, they treat me like Stephen King. Everybody else has no clue who I am.
Right.
So I even get to when I go off to a convention or something, I usually tell my wife, I'm going away for the weekend. I'm going to go play celebrity because for that weekend, I mean, it's not like I'm getting, it's not like I'm Tom Cruise celebrity where everything is just handed to me. But there are people who are like, "Oh, that's Stuart Jaffe," and they're nervous to come meet me and ask for an autograph or something, which is, mind blowing. But then I come home and I still have to scoop the kitty litter. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, life.
so life doesn't change that much. But there was a point, so I went indie and I was just kind of assuming it would never happen. So I was kind of accepting that. But then over the course of the last, decade and a half or so, I started watch I used to be like, well, it's probably not going to happen for me, but it does happen for indie authors now and then. And if it happens, that'd be cool. I wouldn't mind becoming famous. I had a couple opportunities. There was for 2 years, my Max Porter series was there was a, Hollywood producer trying to turn it into a TV show. Um, I made some nice money, but it never got made. So, that kind of, so there were moments that it started seeming like it might happen. And there was a point where I had my sit down, a few years ago, and I realized, you know what? If it happened today, I would deal with it, but I don't want it to happen. I don't want to be famous because being famous now in the age of the internet and social media, it looks like it sucks. I mean, it still
Oh,
has all
you're
the
in a
great,
fishbowl. You are
yeah,
so in a fishbowl.
you still have all the great perks, and all of that, but every little step you take is just is monitored, and it's got to be
Right.
really. I know how tough it is for a weekend to be. When I say play celebrity, it's not just that people want to see me, but when I'm out there, other than when I'm in my hotel room and just alone and able to decompress, the rest of it, the second I'm out that door, I'm on. I
Right.
am hyper aware that everything I do represents me and my brand of being Stuart Jaffe, the
Right.
author.
And
And
it's exhausting if I mean
it
if
is.
you're like the Stephen King kind of celebrity, it's like you always have to be on. There's no off.
I don't know how they do it.
It's
I'm sure
exhausting.
you get used to it and you find ways, but there's behavior I see from them, good behavior, but like they'll come and they'll do their signing and then they're like out of there as fast as possible. And if you've not been on that side of the table, it looks like they're like, oh, they're just here to cash their check and get out. And some of them are, but some of them, it's just mentally exhausting. And
Hmm.
and then if I'm kind of an introvert, extrovert kind of person, but a lot of writers are very much introverts. And so it's really hard on them to be for 10 hours to be at these things and just smiling and conversing
And put on that mask. I mean,
and yeah,
essentially, it's a mask.
it is.
You know.
It's a tough thing. So,
Right.
I what I really want, I can't. What I'd love is all the perks of being famous, and I don't mean like the fine dining free table or anything like that, but the authors that are at a really famous level have opportunities for writing opportunities, creative opportunities that would be awesome to have. There's a project that I'm not going to go into detail with, but there's a project I've been trying to get off the ground for like 2 years, and so far, and I'm still working at it, and I'm probably going to have to bite the bullet and just Kickstarter it. But I want it. I'd rather it go through a major publisher so that it could get the widest possible audience. And I just don't think it's going to happen. It's a real hard sell.
I'll never say never. Words are
And
powerful.
well, this is true. You're correct. Uh, but so I would love the opportunities that the bigger names get. I would love the readership because that's why we create art is to have our audience, that's part of the whole thing. We write or make music or whatever, make a movie so that people will experience it and
And
I
enjoy it, and
that
maybe it evokes some emotions and feelings
yeah.
and good stuff in them. I get it. Yeah.
And if they don't, if I write a book and nobody ever sees it, to me, that's not a work of art. It's something I did create it, but it needs that second half of the equation to get to work for me.
Right.
And so yeah, I would love the audience. I would love the opportunity, the creative opportunities. I could care less about the rest of it at this point in my life. I don't need that. I don't want it. Um, and if
I mean, we won't say no to it when it comes along
no,
with
because
it,
if
but
I
no, but
get
I get what you're saying.
if the fame were to come because of that fame, I would get the audience and the creative opportunities, and that would be
Right.
awesome. So I would put up with it, but it's
No,
not the goal, and it's
no,
not.
I totally get that. So in your question thingy that we did, you said something that was fascinating for me too. It was like you use fiction to try to find reality. So what truths can fiction reveal that real conversations often hide?
Oh well, true. In fiction can say say the quiet parts out loud. Fiction can both on a big scale, it can reflect our society. I mean, this is why we do fiction. This is
Right.
why there is whether the fiction be books or TV or movies or plays. The
Oh,
whole
we like to
reason,
escape into that.
well, people like to say that they're always like, "Oh, I don't want my book to have a message or anything. I just want to escape." I hear that plenty, and I'm like, "Yeah, but you don't want that. Like that's just
Yeah, no.
empty."
You
The
still want the
reason you
message in
like
there.
the reason you like The Walking Dead isn't yes, there's action and horror and all these things, but it's the social commentary about what we would do if the chains of law were taken off of us. Or the reason you like Star Trek or is not because of the cool aliens and the phasers and I mean those
No,
things
because
aren't,
it's like there's an underlying message.
but yeah, that's what makes those episodes interesting and worth watching again and again and again. Um, what most people are saying when they say I don't want all that in my fiction is that they don't want to know it's there. When it's hitting you over the head,
Ignorance is bliss.
when it's like here's the message, then it's not working. Because
Right,
that's part of why good fiction, good plays and TV, and that's why that stuff works, is because we give you something that's entertaining you and you don't realize you're relating to it on
right.
another level.
Well,
So,
I think it also is like people don't want that because it means they will have to take responsibility
well,
for the stuff in their life,
that
for
is
the
an that
choices
is
they
a
make
they
and
don't
everything.
yeah,
So
they don't want to
it's like,
well, again, they do want their conscious brains doesn't want it, but the rest of
right,
them does. And so as long as they don't feel they're being spoon fed and being told you need to behave this way, but instead if they just see it and they're like, oh, I want to be more like my hero, they start to accept certain things,
right.
which is sometimes can backfire, especially when you're dealing with anti-heroes.
Yeah,
Uh,
that is true.
my son, who's 28, has been now exploring the world of movies that he'd never seen, and he was too young to see when I was raising him. And so every now and then he'll call up, be like, "I just saw Night of the Living Dead," and so I'm like, "Cool, let's talk about it," and that and so I remember him saying to me a while back, he was like, "Yeah, I just saw the movie Scarface." He's like, and so we were talking about that, and he was like, "I don't understand why people would want to like Al Pacino's character in that has become this like people love his T-shirt like to say hello to my little friend and all this stuff, and I'm like yeah my guess is one of two things. Either a lot of the people who do that have never actually seen the movie and don't realize what a loser he is, and that in the end, all of his attitude and all that results in him dying a bloody, horrible death, right? He's
Hmm.
not one. The movie does not present him in a way to be glorified. And yet a lot of people do. And that's because I think they want to forget about the ending and just be like, I'm the big boss. And I think that's always a danger with an anti-hero. And I've written anti-heroes before too. And I'm like, you got to make sure it's clear that this is not a heroic
Right.
thing this person's doing. Yes,
Right. No, I'm with you. And but I think a lot of times too, it's like people fall into that I call it groupthink. It's like
yeah,
whatever is the latest fad, the latest in thing, without really paying attention to what else is there.
yeah,
Let's go a little deeper. They just do the surface thing, because I mean we're humans, we're pack animals. We want to belong,
right.
we want to fit in. So and I'm sad to say the vast majority of people these days, they fall into that follower. Let's not think. Let's not go deeper. Let's just like, oh, we go with the herd this way. Let's all fall off the cliff. Yay.
Yeah, we do to an extent. I always go. I have such a tug of war in my head about the populace as a whole. Some days I want to look at them and go, they're all idiots. But but then when you break down why they're actually making the decisions that seem idiotic, a lot of times you realize people are really thinking. They're just we're all self-centered. We're all looking out for ourselves. And so the decisions they're making, while that I don't agree with them, if you actually look at their lives and their life, what they need for themselves and for their family, it makes sense given the choices they might have available. And
Mhm.
that's it's a hard thing to swallow, but that's kind of part of my job is to try and put myself in other people's shoes
Right.
and see it from their point of view.
So do
Um,
you think people are more disconnected from reality now or more disconnected from themselves these days?
well, that's what I'm trying to say is it's not that. It feels that way, right?
Right.
But that's like especially you get into the whole all the generations looking at each other, and we are in a massive time of change, which you know our generation is used to. We grew up analog, and it became digital in our youth. Um, but like a lot of I don't want to get too heavily into politics, and so I'm not without like naming name kind of things. But a lot of the problems I think we're facing right now is because the people in power over the entire government are overwhelmingly boomers, and
Hmm.
their generation, their view of the world, their reality is truly different than the millennials and the Z gens. Their reality is different. So, and we're just, of course, ignored and just skipped over, but
I mean,
but we don't freaking care. But but seriously, I've watched this happen. We've all watched it happen. But I have the benefit of my son is willing to articulate, and he and I will get in conversations about this. And watching him just the older generation, our parents and our grandparents truly do not have a concept
right.
of what it's like to try and financially exist as a Z Gen, in your 20s right now. Because I, as an X Gen, like I talk to him and he'd be like, well, how do I do this? How do I do X, Y, and Z? I'm like, oh, well, you just go do this and this and this. He's like, those don't work anymore, you know?
Mm.
Like,
No, I
like,
get that. I have those kind of conversations with my son too.
yeah. I mean, the most simplest things were still done kind of on paper or by meeting people in person, and they're not anymore, and it's all automated. And what that does to that generation, not to mention every generation has its various traumas that it grows through, right, or lives
Right.
through. The greatest generation had to fight World War II. We grew up under the threat of
What do you mean
nuclear
the greatest
annihilation.
generation? Gen X is the greatest generation. I'm
Well,
just
yes, but we grew up with a true serious thought that we were probably not going to live. We were going to, if we lived, it would be in an atomic wasteland.
right.
right? We grew up with it. And then while that didn't happen, we then, right when we became teenagers, AIDS became a reality. And so we grew up in a time of sexual freedom in the 70s. And then when it was like our turn, they're like, no, if you do that, you will die. And so, those were a couple of our traumas.
Hmm.
My son grew up, with 9/11 happening when he was a toddler, and asking me if his uncle was okay, because his uncle works in New York City and often had breakfast in the Twin Tower, the restaurant up there, and it just happened to not go that day, thank goodness. So they have that trauma. Then they have the trauma of, the housing market bubble crash and the various and everything that was promised to them didn't happen. And it's so they've got all these, they've got a whole different outlook on their reality.
Hmm.
It's just completely, it's where so the whole point of this is that we're all living in the same world, but we truly do have, it's different realities in terms
Different
of
perspectives.
what issues we're facing. And
Hmm.
so if you are, in your 80s and you're in the government and you hold the levers of power and you're trying to, let's say you're trying to truly help the younger generation, you don't understand that healthcare is a nightmare for them, because you're in your 80s, you already have all the money you're going to ever make. And if you're in the levers of power, you got good money. So to you, you're like, I don't understand. You can understand if somebody says, well, here's the problem, but it still
Right.
just doesn't it's not part of your reality. And
No, I totally get that. Speaking
I
of
think that's
reality,
where the,
so
yeah.
social media rewards performance.
Yeah.
Fictions, at least, admits it's fiction. Do you think
Yes.
that makes novels more honest than the internet?
Yes. Absolutely. Um,
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. Well, so fiction uh, um, is fictional. It's upfront about that, but it's doing it ultimately for the purpose, as we said earlier, of trying to express something about being human, right? This is my uh, what I say to young authors, where I'm like, AI is not going to replace art. It might replace
Never.
authors, but it won't replace art, because art exist. The whole point of art is it's human beings creating something for other human beings about what it means to be human. That's what all art is, whether it's,
Right.
music or sculpture or whatever. And if ever AI gets to the point of replacing authors, where you literally cannot tell the difference between what I write and what a computer writes, and they're both 100% equal, then we humans will go create some kind of art that a computer can't do. I always use the example of, we'll start doing chainsaw sculptures, that the performance itself becomes part of the art. It's happening in music. The performance of music, seeing it live, is much more valued now than ever before, because no, the computer can't do that.
Right.
So I think what we see with like influencers and stuff like that is, uh, it can be entertaining. I certainly watch my share of YouTube and all that kind of stuff, and scroll through stuff, but it
Did you say scroll or squirrel?
scroll squirrel. But the thing is that it's so performative, and especially so the social media part of it, where even your most of your friends don't even know they're doing it. But it's not like I'm going to put on if I post something, it's something that puts me in a good light. I'm not going to
Mm,
sit there and say, oh, I just ranted about, X, Y, and Z. Some people do, and then but most people are trying to present themselves in the best, right? Well, a lot of, especially the younger generation who grew up with social media already in existence, they learn like the best angles that the camera should be at, and the best lighting, which clearly I don't have at the moment. They know, they probably don't even think about it, but they know how to do all this stuff. I'm always amazed, at AOC with politics when she came on the scene, and just all these older people would try to get into Twitter fights with her, and she would demolish them, and she still demolishes people. And people are like, "How could she do that?" And I'm like, "It's because she grew up. That's just like we don't think that way. You want to
Right.
get into a sarcasm fight verbally with me? I'll destroy you."
Gen
Right?
X for the win.
Because that's what we did. We knew it.
Right.
You go to school,
Hey,
and your
sarcasm
friends,
is is a language.
yeah, and your friends would give you crap, and you would give it back, and you learned how to do that. And we grew
Right.
up, and it was part of the fiction too, right? Like one of the people I grew up idolizing was Alan Alda as Hawkeye Pierce in
Oh
Mac.
man, I love that show.
And his character was making jokes all the time, and usually they were sarcastic and pointing out, how horrible the military was, and and all this stuff, and we digested all that. But now the world that younger group is growing up in is social media based. It's less television, and so they're less sarcastic and more point out the irony and self-referential irony, and they know this language in a way that we don't. So,
Right.
you know,
And and because of that, I think there's a lot of miscommunication that is going on. And
yes,
and that's where people get their feelings hurt on
yep,
either side. But it's not because one side wants to hurt the feelings of the other side. It's just because even though it's all English or German or whatever, it's still a
right,
different kind of language.
right. And I think
So
the gap now, because of computers and the speed with which it has grown and changed, right now we've just been in several generations of change, unlike any before. And so literally Z Gen and boomers are not speaking the same language. Whereas, like when we would be talking to our grandparents or even our great grandparents, things change so slowly that at least when we before the home computer started changing things for us, we we had a same enough of a reference to actually be able to communicate and work
right.
together in a way that younger generations just don't share.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like sometimes talking to some of those young kids these days, I'm going like, what the fire truck?
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, so what does writing give you emotionally that other forms of expressions never quite did?
Um, a paycheck?
We're talking emotionally.
Well, because I don't know if there I don't know if there is something like so when I started playing guitar when I was about 15, and so that was my other big love. I very quickly realized I didn't have the passion to sit there and play for 8 hours a day to become Eddie Van Halen, and but I would have loved that. That was another like fame and fortune kind of dream. But I had my band. I still play in bands to this day. Um, uh, but that like and I wrote songs when I was a teen, and that just kind of stopped. This is something I don't know. I became addicted to doing it, and I was good at it, and I got better at it, and um, I've thought about this before. I've been asked this before, and I've asked myself this, um, and I don't know if it's that it gives me it's in my case. I don't think it gives me an outlet that I don't have, because I'm not afraid to express myself. A lot, like again, I mentioned earlier, a lot of writers are introverts, so
Right.
writing for them is a way to say these things that they can't say, or don't, or that they need time to process and figure out the best way to say it. Um, but for me, I mean, I definitely use it to express things that sometimes I'm not afraid to say, but I just don't have the opportunity to say. Um, uh, and it definitely gives me an opportunity to talk about things like politics and religion and other things that are not. not for polite company
So
usually.
it's kind of like a release, release, relief, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So
But I've just been doing it so long now that I don't think of it in those terms. It's just I mean, I don't know if I could not do it. Even it doesn't matter how much money I'm making, and with a writing career, year to year, month to month, day to day, this is what your income does. So there have
right.
definitely been years where I'm pulling in a lot of money and getting a lot of readers, and then there are years where, I'm like, oh goodness, here we go. But I still keep writing books.
Right.
So there are years I've lost money.
Hmm.
It's just, and I keep doing it. And so something in me finds that passion for that artistic outlet, which while I love playing the guitar, I never have felt like I've got to pick it up. I've got to play today, even if nobody listens. That's not how I feel about that. And I tried. A good friend of mine is a beautiful artist, and I remember him. We were right out of college. We were living in sharing a townhouse and with another guy. And I remember him being like, "Oh, I can teach you the basics of art." And so he explained it to me, and he's like, "Now just go draw." And I spent like an hour working on, like he was giving me, art 101, and I did one thing, and he gave me critique on it, and I just never did it again. And it wasn't like out of spite. It was just there's I don't know why people have passion for certain art, certain things, not just art. There are people who get passionate about cars or sports or whatever. That I don't know what it is in human beings that our brains wire up and say, this is the thing that
Right.
you are just drawn to inexplicably. And so, whatever that is, that's, I guess, ultimately the emotional thing or the release, but it's deep inside us.
Oh, I get it. I get it.
I don't think, I think most artists don't know, they know, like, we know what we can, I know I can get out of, like, oh, I was frustrated about this, so I wrote this story, but there's something deeper going on as
There's
to
more. It's like, but
why that
wait,
art
there's
even,
more.
but why we chose that art, that form. Because
Right.
certainly nobody sits there and chooses writing as a career,
Well, some
um,
people
because
do,
of,
but
because no, but nobody sits there and goes, there are plenty of people who are looking, going, well, I like helping people, and I really got a good feeling out of being a being a doctor. I'm going to get into medicine, and it's lucrative. I can make a good living off of it. This is a smart decision. Anybody getting into any of the arts is not making a smart life decision as far as financially goes. But
right.
then if you look at all the arts, you know, get into the movies, get into, for a while, music was a great writing, has always been like, it's not been a good way to make a living for since probably ever.
Right.
Even in the days of like Charles
But
Dickens.
oh my God, it's so much fun. It is so
Well,
much fun.
for me, yeah.
For me too. It's like, oh my gosh, this is fun. My husband is like, so what did you do today? It's like, well, inspiration struck, so I wrote. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Or I draw or whatever, but I mean because it's fun, and it's like it's something within that it's like, oh, you know what? Let's do this.
Yeah. And
Let's like
I would not get that same feeling out of disassembling a motor engine and putting it back together to make it work right. But
right.
there are people out there who, for them, that is the greatest thing in the
That
world.
that's like the thing is like yesterday, we had a snow day here in Colorado yesterday, and I was sitting here going like, man, and then it's like I could feel my inner nerd child. It's like let's play, and I just got my doctorate cap and gown for
Mhm.
the graduation, and I put on the cap and I took a picture, and I went on ChatGPT and I said, hey, I am the doctor. And I love Doctor Who. I love Star Wars. I loved, and the colors for my college, it's the Gryffindor colors. I mean, come
Uh-huh.
on. So I had ChatGPT create all kinds of stuff yesterday, and it's like before you know it, it's like 3, 4, 5 hours, poof, God, but it was so much fun. And this is that's what I'm saying. Is I get it. It's like and I'm sure you do the same. It's like when you get into writing, that's what it feels like. You just go and it's like
Yeah.
the time and space just disappears, and it's just like you just have fun.
It's funny because I you mentioned Chat GPT, which when people use AI to write a book and do all this, and that, I'm my mind is blown on so many levels and angered on many levels. But one of the things I'm always like is, why would you? That's the fun part. Why would you have an AI do the part that you want to do as
Right.
a writer? And I know the answer, but that's you know, that's the thing is like if you really are a writer, you would not want AI to do it for you because that's the part that's
Because it can't.
or write you a song or whatever, you know,
Right.
it's just blows my mind. I'm like, that's the part people who create actually enjoy is creating something, not marketing it is not the fun part. Trying to
Right.
sell it is not the fun part. I mean, it's just
No, I get it. So I have another question. It's a really good one, actually. I like it, you know. It's like, what's the most Gen X sentence you can say with complete sincerity? I know,
well,
right?
putting in with sincerity kind of undercuts the whole Gen X part right there.
Boom, right there.
Or maybe that's the most Gen X thing I could say.
I love
Um,
that.
that
And
is
you're
very
right.
funny.
Or my favorite saying these days, not wrong.
Not wrong.
So, unfortunately, we're like, I could talk to you like all day. This is fun. This
No, I'm having
is
a good time.
so awesome. I love that. So, if someone listening realizes they've been chasing a version of success that's quietly making them miserable, where do they even begin untangling themselves from that?
Um, Sit down with yourself and have that heart to heart. And I mean, this actually answers your previous question. Knowing is half the battle. But really,
Not wrong.
you need to you have to admit that this is not what you actually want anymore. That's it. That's the first step is admitting it because otherwise you're still chasing it. You can't start chasing something else until you figure out I don't want X. Why don't and then ask yourself why? What is it that's moved, and like for example with me, I knew I didn't want fame anymore. And part of it is I realized that I've reached a level with the audience I have and the audience I hope to continue to grow with that I'm content in my life. And
Mm,
that I think is, that's something else I try to teach other writers and my son and other people is that being content is much better than being happy. Happiness is fleeting. It's good to have. I enjoy being happy, but it happens for a short period of time and then it's gone. But you can be happy and you can be content in good and bad, right? You can be contented just kind of accepting and middle of the road at peace with things. And I find that much more pleasant in my life than
hmm
than any kind of fame. Because I look at what the famous people are doing, and I'm like, I mean, I enjoy my little rural house and the quiet, and I get to write. I get to, my day as a writer, I get to structure it any way I want. Every day can be a different structure if I want it to be that way. There's no requirement on any of it. And for
hmm
me, that's worth every dime. Um,
Nice.
so that once I realized that, then that's what I could guide my life towards. But first I had to realize what I didn't want, being
hmm
famous, and then figure out what you want from there. So
Right.
whatever you're chasing after,
Be clear.
be
Become
honest
clear.
with
Become
yourself. Do I
crystal
really
clear
want this?
in what it is you want, and then go after it. Yeah, that's what I tell my clients. Like, oh, well, I said, so what do you want? And it's so interesting too because it's like most people can tell you what they don't want, but
Hmm.
they cannot tell you what they do want. So I
Right.
write. I have my clients write down the list of the things that they don't want, and then next to it, have them write down the opposite
The opposite.
until it
Sure.
becomes automatic. So, but I had to laugh because you said, with the happiness and contentment. To me, it's the other way around. I actually wrote a book. And there's a difference between being happy and being content. So, but it's like it's whatever fuels you, whatever fills
Sure.
you, and that's the thing. It's like you are you,
Hmm.
and that goes out to anybody listening, watching this, it's like you are you. You are unique. There's only one like you, and figure out who you are and what it is that you want, and then go after your dream, yeah, go after your desire, and just like if that lights you up, whatever it is, unless of course you don't harm people, we don't harm people,
Right.
we don't be idiots about it, you know, but it's like whatever fills you up and lights you up and fuels your heart, go for it.
Hmm.
You can't lose,
I agree. I agree.
So, oh my gosh, this was so much fun. This was so good. I love it. Hey, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Oh, I make it easy. It's stuartjaffe.com is my name.com. I have a Patreon. There's a free thing there, so you can check me out there. I'm not hard to find. Go to Amazon, put my name in, and you can find me there. I try to make it easy for you to buy my books because that's
I
really
love that. I
what
love
I
that.
do.
Is there any parting words you want our audience to know?
Oh,
Something to
I
take
think
away
we just
from?
summed it up pretty well at the end there. I don't want to undercut that.
All
That was
right.
all good.
Easy peasy. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I so
Thank you for
appreciate
having me.
you. And I'm so happy we're connected. And
Definitely.
yeah, this is awesome. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back next blah 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 blah. Blah. Okay? Got it? Okay.
Got it.
We'll be back next week with another awesome guest. And until then, remember, normal is optional, mass are not necessary, and you belong. And we will see you next time. Thanks for listening to Home of Misfits by Matters of Perspective. You belong.